Good evening, everyone. This is the Finance Committee meeting. It is March 14th, 2023, and I would like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A, Section 20. And on June 16, 2021, the governor signed an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And just on the remote extension, I think Cindy has been reading some news that there may be an extension going on to that, and that's still
right. I was just gonna check again. You know,
Yeah.
there is a bill filed to at least extend it to 2025, if not, and then they'll work on a permanent resolution. Once again, the feeling is that the remote access gives people more opportunity to join in to meetings with feeling less intimidated by it and just having ease of accessibility to attend and listen into meetings, and rather than having to attend them in person. I believe it's attached to the governor's budget bill. It's all part of, the one big package. So I'm not really sure. The current one expires March 30th of this year, in a couple of weeks. So March 30th is the last date right now. Whether they'll do an emergency extension, I will check on that and see if there's, before the next time we meet, see if there's any progress on that.
right, because as of now, we've got the end of March, and then we're back.
Right, then we
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for keeping on the pulse on that one. So our agenda tonight is to one, talk about the fiscal 24 budget, and I had circulated that to everyone. So we had a draft last week, and then, as we all know, the state aid came through with some additional dollars, and we had initially parked it to the OPEB reserve for lack of, knowing what to do with it without discussing with the select board and Jim Hartnett. And then he did make recommendations last week to us. He had provided it to us just as we were starting the meeting, so we didn't have much chance. And so I didn't hear much opposition from anybody on any of the points. And so I went ahead and put it through the Finance Committee draft, and I sent that to you all, I think, on the 10th or somewhere around there. So has everyone had a chance to review that recent draft? And if anybody has any comments or thoughts on that current draft, we can go through it now. Any issues at all, or everything look okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any issues. We were just incorporating the changes that, what Jim had recommended.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. The only thing that I did differently on the version that that I provided to you was in Jim's override budget, he had put in to use some of those funds to fund the overlay, and I took that out of the override budget and put it into the fiscal 24 budget, since there's sufficient free cash to use that it makes more sense to put it in the fiscal 24 budget. So I changed that up a little bit, but that was the only change that I had added from what Jim had. And I think it really decreased the amount of principal pay down that would be done on the campground principal from using free cash. So just decrease that a little bit.
Karen, sort of as an aside,
the overlay reserve might be a pretty good parking space in the future because it's simply a reserve account for abatement. So it's not
Mhm.
committed and it can simply be reorganized like any other saving without having to go through the stabilization issues, et cetera, we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I thought it made sense to park it in there, because Jim's been saying that that the overlay's been very, very tight, but was going to wait till next year to fund it. But I think it just made sense to
Mhm.
fund it in fiscal 24, so it's at appropriate levels. I think I added 60,000 to it, which was the balance of it.
Well, I think it's also particularly good, given that there are, there's an article on the annual town meeting warrant to increase the threshold and increase the amount of the abatement for people who file for those abatements. Those do not get redistributed among the other taxpayers. That has to come out of the overlay account. So they may see an uptick in the amount that they may have to hit up the overlay account, because the amount of the exemption for low income and veterans, I believe, is going to go from 500 to 1,000, I think. So, so they may see an uptick in those. And lots of people are going to petition against their increased values. So many people saw significant increase in values, and, you may have a few more debates about whether or not those values hold true.
I agree with Cindy, but on the other hand, the exemption is pretty small. So
Yeah,
the
it
results
is pretty
are very
small. It is pretty small.
We just gonna have to be careful how much we park into the overlay, because there is a calculation that the DOR does that you can only have so much in that account based on the projection of what is out there. So I know we've asked this question in the past of what cases are pending, and now the overlay had a change back in, I think, 2021, that it's pretty much, it was segregated by fiscal year. Now it's one big lump sum balance, so they can fight cases that are 10 years old if they wanted, like if they got a natural, like a Eversource case or a natural gas case from one of these big suppliers, they can go back 10 years and fight these cases. So it used to be on a fiscal year basis, and that would have to get recertified. But there is a cap, and I don't know what that is, but I know that there is one set by the DOR. But I don't foresee that we're anywhere near it. We're probably nowhere near it, but
Gary, I mean, that's news to me. I've always thought that real estate taxes were on a fiscal year. That is, you have to pay the tax and claim the abatement. So I understand pooling all the reserves to cover whatever year, but does it still mean that you have to claim the abatement in the year of the tax?
well, in order to file for an abatement, they have to be current with their tax, and I believe they have, not sure how many years they have to file for an ATB case, but if it ends up going to the ATB, that could be years in the process. But they have to file within, I believe, the fiscal year that they're in. But the balance,
So
the
you're
balance,
you're agreeing with what you're saying. Basically, if they filed, it may take a while for it to go through the system, right?
oh, definitely, yeah, yeah.
But they only have to file within the year, so therefore they can't 10 years later go back and claim an abatement.
Correct.
Great.
And I know
Thank you.
we've asked in the past, but I don't know if we've ever gotten to see what, I mean, that's not public record. Some of that's not public record for us to find out what cases are out there, but at least we should maybe get a dollar amount somewhere down the road.
You have to be careful in litigation too,
Right.
not to make too many statements of what may or may not happen.
Right.
Right. So I just want to call out a couple other things in the budget. As this draft of the budget is currently using free cash in the amount of $760,252. And I want to go through what that is. So some of it is for free cash recommended uses. Let's see. So I just want to go through this list. So on this draft of the budget we have, it's $300,000 of free cash is being used to pay down the principal of the campground. We talked about that last week. So to pay down the debt, doesn't pay it off, but helps pay it down. and $100,000 to add to the town's sick and vacation buyout. There was an article that allows that funding, so this way the dollars can be used whenever there's some significant retirements to go on. And then the balance of that is, right now, this budget uses free cash in the amount of $360,252 to help fund the schools. And to break that down a little bit, the schools' proposed budget by the school committee was $21,706,159. The allocation of the town's portion that would be allocated to the school based on the 54% split would be a total of $20,934,910. Then using free cash of $360,252 would put the school at $21,295,162. And that was the number that the school committee had provided to the select board, that was their minimum level request, and that would incorporate $410,997 worth of cuts. So this budget is what incorporates those changes. And I thought I heard someone have the hand up, but
Well, Karen, now maybe you're going to bring this up later in the meeting. Are you going to discuss at all the meeting that we had with them yesterday?
Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
trying to
All right,
where
good.
we
Okay.
are here.
All right.
That's in front of us. So that's what we talked about, and that's what's in this budget that's in front of us. So any thoughts or comments on that? Okay. And as Cindy mentioned, Cindy and myself and a select board member and a school committee member met yesterday, and we were talking about the fiscal 24 budget as well as the override. Very preliminary discussions, but nothing's committed. So, but the one member of the school committee was suggesting that they may be coming back and requesting additional free cash above and beyond what we already provided for in this budget. So they were going to talk to their executive committee and determine if that was going to be the case, and then let us know Wednesday, so we would know tomorrow. So I don't want to really talk about numbers because they haven't discussed that as a committee yet, but they may be coming back asking for additional free cash to supplement the budget further.
If I may, Karen, the genesis of that was the original $500,000 that was suggested by a member of the select board. So the school committee really honed in on $500,000 of free cash initially. That's how much the select board had offered or suggested that could be used from free cash. So when the additional funds came in, the school viewed that as additional funds on top of that 500. So this is where the differences kind of come in a little bit, and it's a difference of $140,000. Really,
Potentially.
yeah,
So I don't want to
potentially.
quote numbers until
And this is all of this is potential, but that's what the genesis of this disagreement is. That they had a number initially, but then when the town determined that perhaps we were getting additional aid from the state, and they received their portion of it, they felt that that was going to be on top of what we had already, not we, but what was already anticipated to be received. All of this is preliminary, of course, but that's where the rift comes in.
So we'll have more information I think tomorrow. We'll pass that along, and that may warrant asking the school to come in and talk with us further about their needs. We all know using free cash in the operating budget is a concern. My concern is last year, $300,000 was added to supplement the school. And we said then that that creates their structural deficit, and their structural deficit, when they start the budget process for 2024, that 300,000 is sitting right in front of them they're already a hole. And if we continue to add more free cash to it this year, that makes the hole even bigger. So when next year comes, that gap is going to be greater, and the town just can't continue to accommodate that. There's no guarantee there'll be free cash next year at all. And, so it's very concerning when the use of free cash, the need is growing, and it isn't supported. So I think we need to really look at that carefully, as we all do.
Karen, can I ask you a question on the numbers you just
Yeah.
gave out? Not the ones you're talking about just now, but the ones you had said about the shortfall. What was the shortfall originally?
So the school numbers you're talking about?
Yes, just the
Right?
school.
Okay. So the school number, the proposed school committee budget was 21,706,159.
Mm-hmm.
So when the town did its 54% split, that number for the town's school budget would be 20,934,910. And then this budget incorporates the use of supplemental free cash of 360,252. And that gets the school number to 21,295,162. And that means the school would incorporate reductions of 410,997 from their original budget request.
Yeah. So, I'm not talking about the numbers here, but that's a good analysis. But, Cindy just spoke about, us potentially going into free cash and using more free cash. We sit at these meetings, and I commend Shauna for coming to these meetings and speaking candidly to us. But we've got multiple other members on the select board that you don't hear from. We're not hearing from what their point of views are. They should be either coming to us and saying, or justifying how they could justify an additional $410,000 in free cash being used, and not a dime more going to the town side. That's really what the justification needs to be. And, we already gave the schools X amount of dollars. And I know that a $410,000 or $100,000 cut to the schools is significant, extremely significant. But we have to hear from the executive branch of government from this town and figure out what they're thinking. If not, we're operating in a vacuum here. And all these asks that are coming on board from the schools, where are the other members, in this? I don't have the answer. I guess I'm looking for an answer from just not only one select board member. And how do they justify us giving $410,000 or whatever that number is, in addition to what we've already given them, and nothing on the town side? That's the question.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Jim Hartnett's here, and he just raised his hand. So go ahead, Jim, you have the floor.
Yeah, just at the last meeting of the Board of Selectmen, once we get the new numbers from the governor's budget, the Board of Selectmen recommended putting $300,000 free cash towards the school because some of that difference was made up with the governor's increase in net state aid. So at this point, the Board of Selectmen had recommended $300,000 in free cash. That was reduced from $500,000 with the new state aid, and then there was an additional $60,252 that was recommended to go from the town side to the school side. So they'd actually be picking up $360,252 above their 54% split, which increased the previous budget by, I think, $160,810.
So the additional amount of money they're asking for is so originally it was at 500,000, whatever the number was, and they've got 360. So they're asking for another 140.
Well, they haven't asked for it yet.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like
Karen, you're on mute. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Karen.
Thanks. So initially, 500,000 was requested from free cash and the select board granted that. Subsequent to that, additional state aid came in, and that provided about $300,000 of state aid that flowed through. So the amount of free cash was lessened because state aid came through, so we didn't need to supplement with free cash. But then, since that happened, then the select board agreed to do another $160,000. So this way the school could get to their number that they had provided, which was their minimum number that they would be accepting within the budget.
Yeah.
So to Gary's point, not only did the select board not be willing to provide free cash to supplement other departments, they in fact took some additional state aid money to supplement the school board. Right? Isn't that in essence? I mean, that $60,000 that they were taking out of the town side to put over to supplement the school budget. So in essence, it's almost like a double whammy.
Well-
Not only are they willing to provide free cash to support the schools, they're willing to take money out of the town's allocation to give to the schools.
But to Karen's point, Cindy, this isn't just this year. This has happened.
No, I know that. I know that.
So we look at fiscal 22, for instance, or 23. This has been the practice over the last few years to do this, and nothing for the town side. And we're relying on these budgets on the town side to penny pinch and have, and hopefully they turn back money. But I don't think it's fair and equitable. That's my opinion, and I think that a contribution of the $400,000 to the schools, yes, it's needed. But to come back to the table and ask for more, I don't know. Without giving anything to the town side, and I'm not recommending that we do. Free cash is free cash. I don't know if it's going to be there next year, but it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't.
Well, and just to clarify, they haven't come back yet. So that was a conversation. So they're, they need to meet and then determine if they are going to request more funds from us.
Karen Lawrence has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Buzzy, you do too. So go ahead. Buzzy was first. I'm sorry.
Yes, I mean, just a quick question, which may be out of order at this point because I realize what we're talking about is the 24 budget. But was there discussion by representatives of the school committee about what kind of override amount might be needed to prevent this sort of scrambling every year in the future?
Yes.
A big number.
Yes. And so again, nothing's, I don't know how to answer that exactly, but the one school committee member that was present did not feel that the 1 million a year for 3 years was in any way going to be sufficient for the school's needs. But we did not
we didn't
engage,
talk about it,
get
right.
an answer on what would be a number that they would be accepting of. And so the question was that the school committee needs to provide that information to the select board so the select board can determine what it, what it needs to do.
What it needs to do in terms of an article in the warrant for the town meeting.
For
Right,
the override.
right, for the override.
I did mention to you at one point, Karen, email exchange. Are we limited to the number of options that we can offer to the town at town meeting and on the ballot?
I mean, I don't know the answer, but I can tell you that the select board closed the warrant. So there's one override article on it. I'm not sure. I think it would be really confusing if there were multiple override budgets, but I think it's going to be hard enough to discuss and try to present one. More than one might be really hard to do, but I can't answer that, Buzzy.
Okay, if it's too late, it's too late. But I think there are other towns that have done it And maybe what I'll do is try to do a quick investigation, even if this is only helpful for the future. I mean, there might be some value in when we give information to the town in pointing out, what one override might do that would really improve the situation going forward. A compromise override with whatever can be said for that, and then next year's budget if we don't get an override. But anyway, let me look that up if I can find something quickly and get it back to you later.
Okay, just to, and Lawrence, I'll let you go in a second, but the school committee member mentioned that for their fiscal 25 budget, looking ahead, they already have more than 600,000 in commitments and contract commitments that are already going to roll in for just increases based on that. And if the school's looking for, 300 to 500,000 in free cash this year, that's $1.1 million of increases that are already sitting there right now. And so a $1 million a year phase in, giving the school their piece is just not gonna, it's not gonna be close. But we need to get some numbers, but go ahead, Lawrence.
Thanks. Thanks, Buzzy. I don't know. I'm just, it just continues to depress me, frankly, that we have this infighting about nickels and dimes, and whether we take 46% from the town or give 56% to the school or whatever the split is. We have the structural deficit problem across across the board. And what else is being done besides this override question to address that fundamental cause of all of our headaches?
Well, our resources are limited as to how we can raise additional money. That's part of the whole problem. We don't have a robust commercial base, industrial base that can bear some of this burden. We don't have any additional taxes. People feel that fees are already, fairly high, and, they generate, thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars. So, we have to look to the future, and that's still going to take several years before we can see what kind of growth can be generated, on Route 6. If that comes, if that finally comes, don't forget there's a price tag associated with that. No one seems to know. Some people think not very much. Some people think maybe it's a lot. We'll see. But that's going to take years and years before we see any real money out of that. And the problems we have are very much on our lap today. But we have no, taxation is our only, we don't have a lot of business that we can collect, meals tax, a lodging tax from. And once again, that's, not a lot of money. It helps, every bit helps, but it's not going to cure the deficit. We need something that we can generate, a couple $1 million from. Not 10,000, not 20,000.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Cindy. And this is what we always hear too. And
Right.
I don't know. I just, I'm not sure if it's because no, I'm sorry, Betty. Higher taxes isn't the only answer to the solution. Never is. I don't know. There's people talk about growth opportunities on Route 6, but then anytime a new business tries to open in town, we slam them with zoning restrictions, or we cut off our nose to spite our face by, passing resolutions to exclude certain businesses, or, we spend money buying vacant land and things like this. Who's looking at this? I mean, where is our economic development committee? Where is our growth committee? We all know, we've known for years that we have these structural problems. And then every year it seems like we just come back to fighting over the scraps that fall from the table.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the override, I mean, I don't see any other option on the table at the moment, but I think, like myself, many people in town are going to be questioning that. They're going to be questioning, well, okay, if we vote for this now, then what? Do we get another override in 5 years, 3 years? And then what? And as the question's already been raised, is this amount actually even going to completely fill the gap or not? The school, the school has like every other department, but because of the size of it, has commitments, as you just said. Providing a quality education opportunity for the children of this town has got to be one of the most primary purposes of spending money as well, generally. So yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but I just find it very frustrating that we know we have these issues, we face them year on year, and we seem to have the same circular arguments.
Thank you, Lawrence. I think we all nod our
Welcome,
heads.
welcome to the finance
Yes.
committee, Lawrence.
Oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing different we haven't been talking about for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Sorry
That's
for
okay.
lowering the tone. Hugh's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Hugh.
I just want to pick up on what Cindy was saying. I hope I'm wrong. But if the school committee has in mind a major increase in funds this time, it reminds me of last year when at roughly this time of things, there was the 42 new members proposed and 3 million or what, 2.5, whatever worth of funding, which killed the whole idea. And if that's what they have in mind again, we're spinning our wheels. So I know nothing's been articulated per se, and I may be wrong as what may be developing, but boy, that's important. There's only so much. Lawrence is right, but you're right, Cindy, that there are limited avenues for a town to pursue to generate revenue. That's the way it is. In an inflationary environment, 2.5% doesn't catch up. It goes behind all the time.
Well, one of the other items that was discussed at this meeting was the importance of having unity, a unified agreement between the finance committee, the select board, and the school committee going into town meeting. That
And there
was
won't be one if they want to have
correct.
extra
And-
money added.
Right, and that's why they're going to meet. They were going to have a meeting today or last night, I guess it was, or tonight. We won't hear from them until Wednesday or Thursday, to hopefully come up with a number that may be closer to adding just the $140,000 for this year. You know what? When the free cash is gone, the free cash is gone, and we're all going to have to deal with that. It is difficult to say to the school committee when we have a year that we do have so much additional cash, that we did get a robust year of money and free cash. We've had opera money that's been able to help with some other spending projects that perhaps would have come up at town meeting out of free cash. So we have an unusual year where we have a little bit extra money, and it's very difficult for them to justify that they have to make as significant cuts as they do, given the amount of cash that the town will end up with in free cash after town meeting. So it's a little bit of a delicate balance. If $140,000 brings unity to the table, I'm for that. But I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, but we'll see what kind of number they come back with. And hopefully we can come to a number so that when we go into town meeting, we can all be on the same page that we still need an override, that this budget currently still has a lot of pain in it, and we would like to move forward to eliminate some of that pain. But you're right, you going in there and with guns blazing saying we want more is not the way to go. And clearly that was the example last year. We can just, pull the plug on it immediately. So I think that it was understood that was an important element that we all be on the same page.
But I would accept the 140 you say. And that because I would give the school committee the credit for having looked at the 500 figures, what they were planning about. Then the figures get moved around and the 140 basically restores the 500 that we can say they were counting on. Okay, everybody's, I would say signed off on, but that's
Right.
the history of it. But asking for more now is just, I use the word worry, but looks very greedy. And I think we're very unpopular. Certainly with me.
And the more was only really relating to an override issue. So that's a separate topic.
Right.
Great. So, go ahead. Al, you have your hand up. So, go ahead.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Yep.
you.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody. It's
Hi,
hi.
welcome.
Well, thank you. And I just want to make a couple of comments. And I think Cindy did an extremely good job of articulating the committee over the last year and our thoughts. And want to say that not all of us were in lockstep on every issue. But I think the one thing that we were in our recommendations we're in lockstep with is the notion that all committees, all departments need to be in lockstep with a cohesive plan that has monitors of measurements that allows the town to be able to say, we need this money for A, B, C, and that we are going to do this and be able to measure it. I will speak, purely for myself, that if the school department will not come to the table and articulate exactly what they do and or want to do, and be able to come and say we are in uniformity with the rest of the town departments, then I'm going to have a hard time supporting this override. And I'm the convener of the committee. And on top of that, and it doesn't matter, I mean, everybody has their burden to pay, but if you look at the chart on the last page of our report, just imagine where my position is tax-wise on that chart. It's not on the lower level. And I am all for putting, my money where my mouth is, but I also don't want this last minute game playing that is going on and has gone on at town meeting or otherwise. We're all struggling right now. The override, I feel candidly, is a stopgap. Unless we end up doing business differently than what we're doing in this town, there is no way that we're not going to come back for an override in 4 years from now. And it's impossible not to believe it. We need to have a systemic change, not only in the way we do business, but how we come together as a group. School committee, board of selectmen, finance committee, and you guys are in the middle, unfortunately. So I sympathize with it, but it's just so darn frustrating for me to get involved in this over the last year or so, watch these meetings and realize how diverse and polarized we are, and it's got to stop. It just has to damn stop, or else this whole town will end up financially imploding. We are in the old days. And Huey, you'll know this, and a few of the others, but maybe Huey and I in particular, realized that what would happen is that everybody would go to the town hall on a Monday night, and then we'd beat the daylights out of each other, and then we'd go to the social club or some other thing and come together with a can of beer and hash out all the details, and it worked. Now it's just a them versus us all the time. And it just has to stop. It just has to stop. And the last thing I'll say, and then I really will shut myself off. When it comes to free cash, and I did because I have nothing else to do now that I'm retired and bored, is to go through the last 15 years of the town annual reports and look at free cash. 98.5% of all the free cash that comes back to this town is from the town side. 1.5% comes from the school department because they're under a different mandate. Now, maybe the state set it up that way, which I believe is the case, but they can shuffle money around where on the town side, you can't shuffle it around. If the police department budgets, which is not an exact science, budgets $500,000 more than they really needed, it comes back to free cash. On the school side, you either have somebody for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years they've got to have hired Nostradamus because everything is perfect. There isn't a penny essentially that comes back to the town. But when it comes back for the free cash, it goes to, the school department is grabbing for it first and foremost, but yet all the other departments in the town are scrambling. I just don't get it. But anyway, that's my thought, and I'm gonna just put myself on mute so I can get my Nerf football and throw it against the wall. And thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Alan. You're welcome to speak again if something else arises. But yeah, you're factually correct. I think in terms of the turnbacks, I haven't gone back 15 years, but I can, from myself being on the committee and seeing the turnbacks every year, the majority of the turnbacks are definitely coming from the town departments, and there's not a lot of dollars that come back as turnbacks from the school. So that is true. But good for you for going back 15 years to verify that. I'm not retired, so I don't have the time to do that. I think the other considerations of significance here that we can't overlook are what other projects are approaching us that are going to take town dollars. And the two items of significance that can't be overlooked in this whole concept of thinking about the override and thinking about using free cash and thinking about the budget is really looking at the development of the campground, which could be significant, and the school administration building, or they need to be somewhere at some point. So there's going to be costs there. And there's significant things to look at in the town hall, the annex, the properties, the old school. All of these things are significant. So it's hard for, I can't have tunnel vision and ignore all those things. And so it's all very significant of an impact to the town. No one has their hand up. I don't have anything I want to say. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for saving me.
Anytime, Karen, anytime. No, you just raised a couple of interesting things. One being the old school and the other being the campground. I frankly, personally, I don't know what the plans are with the campground or why we even bought it in the first place. The old high school is obviously something that, the town more or less owns, quote unquote. And I know, a couple of us are around that committee that is trying to look at options for what we can do with that space, how we can commercialize it, or at least make some money out of it within the current zoning restrictions and so on. But yeah, if anyone has some further information on what the situation with the campground is, I would be very interested to know.
Well, I'm on that committee, and it was originally purchased just because it was a unique parcel of land adjacent to the properties that were being, utilized for the new school. And given the constraints, it's very unfortunate that that parcel of land was not offered for sale when the school was initially being built, because then it could have been incorporated into their plan. They really tried to squeeze a very large building into a postage stamped lot that had a school that was half the size. So, kudos to them for getting that done, but there were a lot of sacrifices that were made. At the end of the day, it was actually very fortunate that that land was purchased, because the school ended up using the well from that, because the well that they had on their current piece of property was not going to be sufficient. So it was a good thing that that well was available to be able to be used. There is no current plan. I mean, there's been a plan for a public space, more, I shouldn't say a public, well, it's all town land is public space, but with recreational use of that land, not solely just for school use, but for multiple recreational uses, with some fields, whether it be lacrosse fields, baseball fields that they do not currently have. And a lot of that hinges on what happens to the other school, because we use the baseball fields at the old school. So if we abandon the old school or sell that, then we have to use some of that money to be able to develop some ball fields. I shouldn't say have to. They should be utilized to use that field. The current number for that is $6, $7, $8 million, depending on the plan that you look at to reconfigure the campground space. So that's kind of in limbo. The committee has not met in some time because we know there are no funds available, and a lot hinges on what happens with the school. I had joked at the last meeting, there was a house on that piece of land, and I said the administration can go and fix up that house and go and move in there. We already have the land, and for maybe $500,000, maybe you could fix up that building, and they don't need a lot of space. But anyway, that didn't fly over very well. I wouldn't be surprised, but
Sounds like a sensible solution.
yeah. So they could put the trailers that they moved from Macomb to school, or get portable buildings like they had. I mean, the students use portable buildings. They could put them on that property if they really had to. I mean, it is town-owned property. But
yeah, they were paying something like $250,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of
those.
money. There's no question about that. But at some point, that issue is going to have to be dealt with about the administration building. So anyway, that's where the campground stands today.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Hugh, did you have your hand up and down?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Cindy's been kind, which you talked about a plan for use of the campground. There was a half-baked suggestion that came before the CPC a couple of years ago. And the suggestion of community involvement was purely papering political, trying to get votes for this and that. It was not real, and it was very premature, and it sank like a rock, as it should have. And as far as the old high school is concerned, there's nothing worse than government trying to run a profit-making business. It doesn't work, and it costs money rather than making it. So the idea that the town should turn the high school into something that would make money is, I think, not in touch with reality. Selling it, I recognize the problem of the fields and this and that, takes it off the books, takes off the expense, and generates whatever it generates. But that's not our decision at this point. That's down the way. I'm just saying I don't see that as a potential way of helping to raise funds for the future. If anything, it's the reverse.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hugh, since
Go ahead.
so yeah, Hugh, I agree with you. And having being on that infrastructure committee that's been looking at the high school, to me, the restrictions on use of that facility are so, boxed in. To use it for anything other than educational purposes would require, rezoning, re-regulating, all that other kind of stuff. So the prospect of it actually being able to be some sort of a revenue generating vehicle for the town is very limited. To my mind, selling it off to somebody who's willing to just take that headache on is probably the, cut your losses option. But of course that comes with the need that you would have to demolish the current facility, basically, more or less. So the cost of turning that site into something useful becomes relatively unprofitable as well too. And so it's kind of stuck in that limbo. And that's why, it's on the warrant too, because we do still use that space. The administration is there and some other things happen there. So, until we have, and that's the other fly in the ointment, until we have another option for the placement of the administration, that's the only thing left. So actually, that's why I think Cindy's idea, cheeky or otherwise, of converting the house into the administration building actually is probably a very sensible option. It sounds like
I agree.
Yeah, it sounds like that land is probably going to become de facto part of the new school campus anyway. So,
Well, the Board of Selectmen have already turned that land over to the school committee. So the
okay,
school
there we
committee
go.
actually controls the use of that land right now.
Okay. Well, then
So-
there we go. Move the admin into the house and demolish the old high school and sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are several former houses that have been used perfectly happily for office space. The Land Trust has the house there off Adamsville Road. They've converted. The trustees and Al and his friends are using the old Poor Farm housing for office space, I think, perfectly happily. Now, the Historical Society is there while work is going on in their real home, but still.
Well, no problems will be solved tonight on this. So, Betty, I know you have your hand up, so 1 second. So the next steps for us here is the one member of the school committee that we spoke with was only speaking on behalf of themselves. So they're not speaking on behalf of the school committee because they hadn't discussed the fiscal 24 budget or voted on any override discussion. So, just as any one of us, we can only speak on behalf of the finance committee if it's something we've discussed and agreed upon or voted on, and then we can represent ourselves. But, we can't speak. If we speak independently, we can only say it's our own opinion of the finance committee, but we haven't addressed it. So what they need to do is the school committee needs to get together and come up to their own committee needs to come up to what an agreement that their committee has. And then that committee needs to bring it forth to the select board primarily and to the finance committee. So then we can talk. So that step needs to happen first. The whole school committee needs to determine what they are accepting of for the fiscal 24 budget, and two, what their needs are for the override. So that needs to happen with the school committee first, and then we can have discussions, because we can talk all day long and we don't know what the needs are. So that hopefully will happen. I don't know when the school committee meeting is, and I think this meeting that they were having was an executive meeting, so I don't believe it was a full school committee meeting. So I think we can engage in conversations again with one or two committee members, but again, there's no decision that gets made out of these mini meetings that we have. We're really just having conversations. So I can't commit anything on behalf of the finance committee in those meetings, and nor can they. So they need to bring it to the full school committee and make some decisions and get back to us. But that really needs to be the next steps. But Betty, you had your hand up, so I'll let you go ahead.
Yes, that's what I basically was going to say. In the last meeting, I think Gary volunteered he was going to bring everybody together and have this discussion. And I, come today and listen to all of this, and you don't have one of the parties here, and we're so close to the town meeting. And as you know, we're trying to defend the override. And then we listen to this private group. We're listening to some people saying that the select board is not doing its duty, that the school committee is not doing its duty. You have to come together, as Al said, and work it out. And the public should see that. And that's it, and you should do it soon, because we're already putting letters to the editor and all of this in here. We realize there will be another override. The old school is going to come up with the warrant. It's going to be all that discussion. All of that's out there. But we're now talking about an override. So let's get the override there so that we can fight for it, because we need it.
So, yeah, Karen, can I?
Go ahead, Gary.
So, no, Betty's completely 100% correct here. In the past, and I don't know, I can't go back to when we even stopped doing this, but we used to have a preliminary meeting with the select board, and we didn't include the school committee at the time, where we all sat down, we had a meeting, we scheduled a meeting, and then, before the budget was even adopted, we sat down on the big issues. And I think if anything, all it did was got that out, and the word was out that we were talking to each other about the budget. We may not necessarily have agreed on every line item, but at least we talked about it. So I would say, and I don't know, and I was a little bit leery because I know Buzzy had mentioned last week that, can we do something like that and sit at a public meeting and discuss an override, or can't we? I mean, I don't know. I don't mind scheduling a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, but I don't want to be in any sort of violation of any kind of open meeting law where we're discussing or promoting an override where maybe we shouldn't be. I don't know. I'm not too clear on that yet.
Well, I don't think it would necessarily be a promotion of it. I mean, it would just be merely, clearing out what the needs are. I mean, I don't think that would be deemed, as long as we post the meeting, I mean, and you post an agenda, as long as we're not out there waving the flag saying, this meeting is for the purposes of trying to promote an override. I think we're trying to find out exactly what this question was. How much is it going to be? What form is it going to take? I mean, we don't really have in our hands what this specific, I mean, are we going with $1 million a year? I'm not really even sure if that's what is in front of us today.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point.
So, right.
So
no, I think if it's posted, then it's fine. By the way, the school committee meeting is this evening, and the budget is not on their agenda now. Whether they bring it up in topics, unforeseen topics, I don't know, but it is not on their agenda.
Is it a full school committee meeting?
Yes,
No.
yes.
Okay.
It was supposed to be last Thursday, and last Thursday's meeting was canceled, and it is being held, today's the 14th. Yeah, today's the 14th, today.
Does the select board meet on the 3rd of April? Does anybody know?
Yes, they do.
They do.
Because they meet on the 20th. The next meeting after that would be the 27th or the 3rd. Yes, they would meet.
So can I have permission to maybe email them and have them come to our meeting, or we set up a meeting together? I mean, I don't know. Do we want to wait? I don't.
Say that again, Gary, to ask the select board to come to a finance committee, or for us to go?
Yeah, we have a joint meeting, I guess. That's probably what I'm
Oh,
getting at. Because we used to have these, but then it kind of fizzled out, and then You know, if anything, I think that we're in front of the whole board. We're getting a feel on what they, because like I said, I only have a sense of what Shauna feels. I don't know what the rest of the members feel like, or what they plan on doing, or what they have for ideas. I think it's crucial, if we're going to be talking about an override, that this committee at least get a sense of what they're thinking, the executive branch of government. And maybe it's a half an hour conversation, or maybe an hour conversation, but at least it's out there and we know maybe how we need to gear our thoughts. I don't know.
Well, I think we can schedule, so we can schedule an open meeting. So even if there's 2 or 3 finance committee members, you know, two select board members and 2 school committee members, right?
I kind of let me just one thing
Yeah.
though. I kind of disagree with that. And the sense is, I think it's going to take the commitment of all of us on this, the full finance committee, the full select board, and it would be great to have the school committee there because they're the biggest ask in all of this. But that might be a little cumbersome over Zoom. I mean, I don't know how we would handle this.
Yeah, and the only reason, and I agree, Gary, all the committees need to be fully on board, but you know, if 2 or 3 represent and then go back to the committees, but we are short on time, but you're right, 7 members of the finance committee and then another 10, so that's 17 people to have a meeting. Certainly will not be a half-hour meeting.
Right.
Well, we can meet in person. We could meet in person.
We can meet in person.
Yes, I'm all
with it.
for that. I'm okay with that. We meet in person. We can, even if it's not at the town hall, if it's like the library or the school, or
Well,
somewhere.
we can see if next Tuesday is available because the select board has a meeting on Monday on their own. We should have we have our normal standing Tuesday nights. We can see if that's available to the school committee and the select board.
Tuesday the 21st.
That would be, Tuesday. Yeah.
I think it's at least a start. You know, it gets us all thinking about it, not just one member here, 2 members there. I mean, yeah, okay, they're going to have representatives. That's fine, but at least the majority of us will be involved. And do you want me to send an email to Shauna? Or
Yeah, I can send an email. I can send an email to Shauna and Nancy requesting the meeting Tuesday. And then see if that works on their schedules, but, or you certainly can too.
and I would just say that we'd like to have the as many as possible to show up. I mean,
Yeah, let's do that. And to Al's point earlier, maybe we can rent out the beer tent at the brewery.
bring your sweaters.
Yeah. So the agenda would need to be.
I'll pay for it.
So the items for the agenda would be certainly the fiscal 24 budget.
Yes.
In the override are the 2 pressing things that really we need resolution on.
Yeah, and I think that would eat up at least more than an hour.
What's that?
It would eat up more than an hour, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll say.
I just think it's good to get everybody's opinion on it. I mean, it's good to know where they stand. Like I said, being the executive branch of government, and we only recommend a budget. They have to enforce this budget, and they have to live with this budget. So it's good to know their input.
Right.
Oh.
I mean, we need it. I mean, we can't we can't progress.
We're going around in circles here. Basically, that's what we're doing. I mean, we're doing the best we can to try to promote it on our end. But what are the other groups doing?
You know, because from the standpoint of the budget, you know, I can support a 1 million a year for 3 years as long as it's supportable, and I totally believe it is. I think that's not enough money. It's not coming in fast enough, but I would support it if the select board, that was the plan. I would support a larger number too, as long as there's support of, and it's justifiable how the funds would be used. So,
yeah,
the people that need to spend the money need to make the budget and make the plan.
All right.
Buzzy, you have your hand up. I didn't even see that. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's been too long.
Well, I think this is a great idea. I thought we had pretty much agreed to this idea at the last meeting. I see no problem with the ethics of having everybody meet together. We talked last time about the fact that the select board is elected, the school committee is elected, elected officials have the most jurisdiction over any kind of question coming before the town in terms of trying to educate, discuss, and even promote as individuals anyway. And the finance committee certainly has jurisdiction over finance. One problem is who's going to chair the meeting. I would suggest the meeting be called by and chaired by you, Karen. I would suggest that it be a hybrid meeting. I think there's something to trying to get people in the room with this group. It would have to be someplace that would hold everybody. We might be embarrassed that a lot of people didn't want to come, but would participate virtually because it would be a hybrid meeting. I think we should go ahead and invite the select board and invite the school committee and make this, among other things, the kind of general educational program in discussing all of this that we've talked about as well. I think we should be inviting townsfolk to come and ask difficult questions. Anyway, I think it's a great idea. If we have to vote on it, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and invite those other two bodies, get suggestions from them about exactly how to arrange it. But I think we need to move on it and move quickly.
For March 21st, correct?
I think that's right.
Buzzy, can you just clarify when you say a hybrid meeting, are you thinking like we would try to be in town hall and then offer a hybrid and have it remote as well? Or are you thinking like a meeting like this?
Part of that is selfish. I'm still under some restrictions with respect to being in a small environment with a lot of people. I mean, I could sit there and wear a mask, I suppose.
We would just have to send out a link. That's all.
Yeah.
Just a link to the meeting.
Okay.
Well, what I'm trying to understand, because a hybrid meeting would be in part person, in part
That's right.
remote.
Yeah, Betty had suggested that we could use the Board of Selectmen
Their office.
room there in Town Hall because of the equipment setup that would facilitate that.
Cable community access, or I don't know what it's called, Westport Community Television. They would be able to set that up. Maybe I can't think of her name right now. Valerie, yeah, Valerie.
But they have the ability. I mean, Jim's right there. I mean, they have the ability to hold hybrid meetings in the select board's office. Jim, you are the luckiest man in this call right now, because on the 21st, you are not going to be available.
I was just going to say. I would make one suggestion, well, two things. One, the Board of Selectmen has made a recommendation, right? So their stance has been, or their position, at least for now, has been presented and submitted to the Finance Committee. I would say if you're going to have a hybrid meeting, it needs to be very structured. We need to know going in what the issues are. If it's a $3 million override, does everybody agree on a $3 million override? Yes or no? And then if it is a $3 million override, how do you want to structure it? Do you want to do $1 million a year, or do you want to upfront some more costs at the beginning? But I just, like I said, recommend that it be very structured. And I would say one more thing. We've had a lot of internal meetings discussing budgets and override, and everybody has different ideas. But even the meeting we had yesterday with the school department and finance committee, at the end of it, I think everybody wants to get on board with the same recommendation. Everybody is looking to, come in as one unified voice. We're just trying to get to that point. So, yeah, I think the person from the school department mentioned that a couple of times as well. So,
I would agree with that, Jim. Thank you. I agree. I think we're all trying to get there. So, yes, we are all trying to work together. We just need to make some decisions. Hugh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't, time is short, so probably doesn't all that much. But the town election is on the 11th. And so there will be a new selectman after the meeting we're talking about. I don't think you want to wait longer because of that, but it still is a factor. The other thing I wanted to mention is I don't think we should be looking so far into the future as people are talking about. The future has a way of taking care of itself, or things change that nobody expected. And so we're dealing with the present and trying to deal with, as best we can, good housekeeping. I would think we would, but this is certainly subject to discussion, do the 3 million now. That would solve a number of problems. It raises the base, so it's not a one shot. It's 3 million next year and the year after, each year at that point. So it's not as if we're only going to get 3 million. We're going to get an additional 3 million each year. And 3 or 4 years from now, who knows? But we deal with that then because we can't deal with it now. I guess I stopped everybody.
No, I didn't know if you were done, Hugh.
May I ask a question?
Sure thing.
Yeah, I'd ask on the chat, you were talking about some numbers. Is that going to be on the town website? What you were just talking about at the beginning, at least.
We certainly can. We can put the finance committee's most recent budget draft as of 3/10 that we talked about today. We can certainly, Jim, you can help us get that set up for us, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
We typically haven't put drafts of the finance committee budget up, but we certainly can because it's discussed here. It's a public document available for anybody. So absolutely.
Do we need to have a vote to approve the budget, or should that wait for a bit?
I think we're not, well, we're not, I don't feel we're ready to approve the budget to finalize it. So I'd like to keep it in draft mode a little longer.
Right, pending discussions we're talking about, right?
Right. Because we're still waiting on the Bristol Aggie assessment. And then of course we need to get resolution with the school number to see if there's any changes there.
So it's posted as a draft.
It's a draft, yeah. Yeah, we'll post it as a draft as of 3/10 if as it's been presented to the finance committee, so it's a public document at this point now, so.
Al has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Al. Thank you, Betty.
No, that's quite all right. I just wanted to weigh in and echo what Huey said about the we need a stopgap right now, and I think that most, if not all, thinking people about this override would look at the fact that this is a measure to keep the wheels on the government for a short period of time, 3 years, 4 years, pick the number. It really doesn't matter, so that we can have a deal with these bigger issues that really are important. I mean, there's a systemic deficit, but there's also a systemic structural, managerial, and operational issue with this town. And I just believe that it's important for us to do this, but be honest with the people to say, this is not the silver bullet. I don't see, it may not be duct tape, but it's not the silver bullet that's going to solve all of our problems. And so I just wanted to bring that up and echo, Huey and many other members, of the finance committee's comments regarding this, that we need to not only realize that, or the townspeople need to realize that, but also I know I'm reiterating and probably boring everybody with the detail, that it takes the executive branch of the town governance and the school committee, with the help of the finance committee, to come together and to create a cohesive and comprehensive solution to the financial issues that relate to this town. And so anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Al, don't underrate duct tape.
I-
we
I
called
have
it
a
100
coil-
mile an
I have a
hour
coil of
sniffing the 82nd
camo-
Airborne Division.
Yeah, I have a coil of camo duct tape in my Jeep that
Sure.
works very well. Yeah.
Go ahead, Betty.
As we've been, some of us, thinking an awful lot about this topic and how do you address it, I think it's very important that when you decide on the components of the expenditure for the override, that you take into consideration what the people are fussing about in town, things that they talk about all the time, and what things mean a lot to them. For example, there's a tremendous amount of discussion about inefficiency in the town, and that the beach passes are so complicated and so forth. But we know very well that a lot of things could certainly be helped if we had better technology. I think that if you think a little bit broader, that perhaps one of the items that would be in there with the discussion is the technology. What can you do to relieve some of the burden from some of the offices, like the assessor's office that has all these things they fill out by hand? If you could put that in and think about it and offer, say, this will help in some of the issues that people are worried about. And then questions that come up about the Council on Aging. 24% of our population is over 65. The Council on Aging is very important. Are they getting enough funds to really do the kind of job that would serve that part of the public? So these are within the town. One of the education is one issue, but within the town, where do you really need to put the resources that will serve people better, and that people will want and will say, aha, yes, I'll vote for an override. I know that maybe in 5 years, maybe another, but I'd vote for it now. That's all.
Thank you, Betty. Lawrence, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Betty. Yeah, I would just like to raise a flag for the other 75% of the town residents. I don't know what their concerns are, and I think we really need to find out. One of the things that I see in this town, one of the things that I feel happens in this town is that there are pockets of people that are very active and very vocal and get their views expressed and get their views addressed. I think there is a large part of the town that does not. And if we want an override to succeed, just as we did with the school campaign, we have to reach that other, that majority, that silent majority that maybe have, different views.
Right.
Thank you, Lawrence. Cindy, go ahead.
Well, to Lawrence's point, I mean, one of the issues I think that we all struggle with, and that is communication. I mean, we have a big communication problem, and we're trying to overcome that. Yes, Westport Group has done a fabulous job in establishing quickly a website, a Facebook page. Whether or not you can get eyes on those things, that's another issue, is to get, the word out that those things exist. Social changes and social media has changed so much as to how information is delivered. We can't rely on our own town website to be reliable to deliver, messages or good information if you're trying to do research, because we've had shortfalls in money. We can't dedicate enough money to be able to fix those problems. It's on a list, but it's on, it's not on the top of the list. It's on a list of things that have to get done. There isn't a town-wide newspaper. Some people do Shoreline, some people do Facebook, it's so fractured, and it's so difficult to get one message out to a fractured public. And it's a daunting task. It's just a daunting task to try to get good information out. Yeah, there's lots of information out there, but not all of it is good information. And I don't know how we can't overcome that in the next 8 weeks. I'll tell you that. I mean, once again, I think that the Yes Westport Group has done a fabulous job in quickly being able to provide those things. But, the town doesn't have a Facebook page. We don't have anyone that could monitor such a town dedicated or town sponsored Facebook page. Many towns do have their own Facebook page to put alerts and everything like that up there. We don't have that, but we don't have the funds for that. I mean, to me, that would be like near the top of the list, that we've got to get our technology straightened out, because we can be much more efficient in so many ways. Right now, the town departments can't talk to each other. They're making progress. They're going to go to a cloud-based system versus servers, and they're moving along, but they're still 10 years behind the times. But that needs to get to the top of the list. We don't have up-to-date information that people can go and rely on. I probably mentioned this last week. I typed Diamond into the town's webpage in the search button, and the first thing that comes up is the school report from 2016. And then it goes backwards from there. It's 2015, 2014. You put the words Diamond in the town website, and that's all you get. That's it. Nothing else. And it's crazy, okay? And I'm not saying that that's anybody's fault. It's the fault of we haven't had the resources to be able to dedicate someone to be able to do that. Now, this is way outside the purview of the finance committee. I get it. But it's a fundamental problem that it keeps landing on our lap because we don't have the resources to be able to address things so we can do things right. Keep in mind, $50 million a year budget. And we walk around like a bunch of clowns lots of times because we still work in the 1980s. We still operate like we're in the 1980s. We should be out of business by now. We should be. We really should be. Because our revenue is so flat, but yet our customer base grows, but our revenue doesn't keep up with our. So what do companies do when their customers are growing and their revenue doesn't keep up with it? They file for bankruptcy because they don't have enough money to be able to serve their company, or people go to the competition. Why do our students go to other schools? Because they can't find what they need here, whether it be competitive sports program, a competitive music program, whatever it might be, they're going elsewhere for it because we can't provide it. And that all costs us money. So it's just a big, big problem that we here, as now 7 members of the finance committee, we can't solve. We can't solve this problem, but at some point that plan has to be put into place, because right now we just count pennies to be able to deal with whatever's at the top of the list. It's a problem.
Rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, all the time. This is what happens every year.
May I say something?
Yes, you may. Thank you. Go ahead.
I agree with much what you're saying, but the schools issue is not accurate. Historically, going back when I was a kid, a considerable number of kids have gone to Friends, Stang, BCD, Moses Brown, etc. Not a new issue, et cetera. It's part of the history of the town.
Right, but now, I mean, in all fairness to the schools, they are faced with mandates that they cannot walk away from. If a student is dropped in their lap on the 10th of October, that they now have to support for the rest of the school year, that has significant special needs that cost $200,000, where does that money come from out of their budget?
I don't disagree with that, but that wasn't the point you were making. It was
No, of
the
course that
reason
isn't,
keeping
but
them in town.
yeah.
And historically, there's been a large proportion. I think there are 50 odd kids go to Stang. And there are a lot of reasons, not just the deficiencies perceived or not of the Westport schools. True of the others as well. I just want to make that point because I think
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, we could argue that point, but
Yeah,
it's not going to get us anywhere tonight.
Right.
Great, thank you. Al, you have your hand up?
I do. And Huey, just as a quick, and I couldn't disagree more. I mean, you know, we've many of us have gone through the Westport school system. I had a great time. I did well. You did well. But I will also say that in the last 7 or 8 years, from a town standpoint, the cherry sheet has changed. In other words, the Chapter 70 money back in, pick a number, 2012, 2013, 2014 was similar to what it is right now on the revenue side, but we went from 0 in terms of assessments to I'm just going through, you know, from memory, to about $1.5 million of supporting out of district and charter schools. So the net result from a financial standpoint has changed to a negative. And yes, you know, kids morph back and forth. You know, kids go to private school, you know, whatever it might be. But the financial impact of our schools has negatively changed, along with other things on this cherry sheet. And when you know the politicians talk about the revenue and the cherry sheet, and we've done this and we've done that and the other, what they never talk about is it's like gamblers. They always talk about the winnings, but never never what they lost. And the loss is the assessments that have grown exponentially, including the school department. So I just want to toss that out as you know, something to think about.
we certainly agree that the state has not been kind. That's part of it. And there were different sources. I'm just saying that it's not all a question of unhappiness of the schools. There are other reasons and historical choices that were made and still are being made.
Just as I think if I got the number right from what I saw in the school budget, that number, Al, is now up to like over $800,000 a year for school choice out of district tuition.
Yes, and I'm just going to jump in, but that's school choice for out of district. But then when you throw in the charter school, it jumps at another $500,000, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
And
I think that 800K incorporates both.
Oh, does it? Okay. Well, regardless, I mean, it's a significant hit off of the charter school, you know, flat line that we're dealing with.
Exactly. That's 800K that's going out of district.
Right.
Yeah, but I belabor the point, guys. If all those kids who were out and so forth were back in the school system, there would be a need for additional teachers, so forth, and so on. So yes, it is money that comes out of it, but it's a volume of instruction that is not needed to be done. And I don't mean to, we can go on to other things, certainly.
Yeah, so I think we're
Move the question.
Oh, Betty, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Guys, let's get this in order so we can get out and fight for it.
Thanks, Betty.
We're not just doing Facebook, and we're doing letters to the editor. I have 4 of them out there now. We are doing interviews, and we need each one of you and everybody in town to talk to their friends. Just keep spreading the word. That's how it happens in Westport. And Al's out there helping us, we know.
Right. And you are too. So thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Good night. I just want to circle back. So I will send an email right after this meeting. Well, maybe after I eat dinner. I'll send an email. But if Tuesday, the 21st does not work for other committees, do we have other dates that we would be willing to do? Like maybe Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday? Are those dates any better? Just looking for alternative dates in case the one date doesn't work for the rest.
For me,
Wednesday.
any day next week is pretty good, really.
Okay.
The following week is a write-off because I'll be out of town.
Okay. Anybody else have any?
I can't do Thursday.
So Gary, you can do Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yes.
How about Hugh? Hugh?
I can do either Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
I can do the same.
Okay. Okay, and I think to Jim Hartnett's point was very good, that the agenda can be very specific, that the select board currently is recommending a $3 million override. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? And if not, what number do you suggest? Question number 2, the select board also recommendation is to do the 1 million a year for 3 years. Do you agree with that? If not, what's your suggestion? And be very targeted. Anything
Now,
else?
this
on
is
the
going
agenda?
to, this is going to include the school committee or not? The school committee?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Well, the select board already has their position, so the select board already has put out there.
that's why I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
it include them, exactly for that reason. Okay.
No. Anything else that I should add to that? So I want to try to keep it very targeted and very specific to this. Go ahead, Buzzy.
Are we going to make sure that the public is invited to speak on any subject related to the budget, ask questions, engage in discussion?
Well, it'll be a public meeting, so the public is always invited to come. And certainly I think after the committees determine what they need to, that there certainly can be questions. But I think future meetings would be better served for answering more specific questions. I think the committees need to get on page on what it's going to be first. But I guess I'd say yes, it's a public meeting, so anybody could come and certainly ask any questions. Absolutely.
But we're going to make a decision before we hear from them?
Are we going to make a decision before we hear from who?
From the public at the meeting. If they have questions, if they have recommendations, if they have objections.
They could vote at town meeting. I mean, we've never waited for public input to make a decision.
Is that true?
Well, I thought the purpose of the meeting was informational and discussional and not decisional.
Well,
If that
I
worked.
think to me, the meeting needs to be decisional. Or if it's not decisional, we should be one step away from decision because we don't have much more time. And certainly,
Yeah, I'm
if-
fine with that. I'm fine with that, Karen.
Yeah.
But I just thought, yeah, in with all the discussion we've had here tonight about purposes and ethics and so on, that the point of this meeting would be to discuss, review, and then take a view thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, and I think the purpose is to get the select board, the finance committee, and the school committee all on the same page with what the override plan is going to be. That's, you know, to me, that's the primary purpose of the position, of the meeting. How exactly how, you know, how the budget's going to be, that isn't necessarily going to be determined
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the meeting. So, and I understand the public input is important, but I think the primary purpose of this meeting is for the three groups to be on the same page.
Right.
And so the override will not be a subject of the meeting?
The override will absolutely be, so the meeting would be the fiscal 24 budget, if there's any recommended changes to where we are, but the subject is primarily the override.
Okay, so, we're not going to give the public an opportunity to react to what's said by the school committee, the select board, and the finance committee before making a decision?
Well, I don't know if, can I just add one thing? I don't know if we'll be making a decision on Tuesday or whatever the night is. I think this is predominantly a feel for what everyone is thinking about an override. And then maybe what we envision is an additional meeting where we invite the public and we have everyone on board, that we go in with one common, theme to promote the override or to discuss the override. I don't want to keep saying promoting, but I would say that this meeting here is left to just brainstorming and getting things out into the open and discussing it at that level, and not really, I don't want to say we don't invite the public, but the intention would be that maybe we, at a later meeting, open it up to public comment.
So yeah, and Gary, I think a couple of things. So there are 2 public forums currently scheduled to discuss the override. One's on the 28th of March and the next one's on the 20th of April, if I remember correctly. So I think we have that covered through those mechanisms. The other thing is, I think as Buzzy was pointing out earlier, we would have to make this an open meeting, so we can't exclude the public.
Oh, yeah, correct, right.
We can't exclude them or deny them, from voicing an opinion at the meeting. But that is not to say that this meeting is specifically to gain public input or to promote a particular position. It is to get us all together in a room to discuss what our joint position should be, could be, would be, etc.
I agree with that, but why shouldn't the public be involved in helping us do that? We're not there just to persuade them, as you say. Why aren't we there to promote discussion? It seems to me more discussion, we haven't had so much so far, is much better than less.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, the meeting will be posted. I mean, there's only, it is open to the public, and if they have questions, they can certainly ask them.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry,
I
Hugh's got his hand up.
I was reacting to what sounded like Karen saying we would make a decision, or we would have our discussion and they could ask questions afterward. I mean, we haven't done that with Al, we haven't done that with Betty, and I think it's been to our advantage to allow people who are not members of any of these groups to be able to engage in the discussion with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Foundation of democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm saying, Buzzy, is we need to, the boards need to come to where they're thinking, right? The select board has put on the table a $3 million override. We as a committee haven't even discussed, does that work for us? Do we, and we need to hear from the school committee. Is that going to work for them or not? Like that's what we need. We need that.
I agree with you, but at the same time, it might be good to have audience reactions, assuming people even come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an open meeting and anybody can come to any meeting and ask any question. Absolutely.
Yep.
Karen, you know how you said a little while ago about the budget being, well, the budget has been approved by the Board of Selectmen, well, recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
So they're recommending the budget that we talked about a while ago, not the one that you folks had a conversation with and increasing the free cash. They haven't recommended that one.
Right. The select board voted on their budget, whatever it was, the 20th or the 19th or whatever that date is. And so at that time, the state aid hadn't come through yet.
Hmm.
And so the select board then discussed items with Jim, who then put through the discussions, but the select board didn't re-vote per se on a new budget. But the numbers that are represented in the draft that we have are representative of what the select board discussed with Jim and Jim put through. So they are in agreement with these we're
With
still,
the changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Other than the overlay, as I mentioned to you, that was the only change I made.
I think Hugh has his hand up. I can't see it.
Go ahead, Hugh, sorry.
Waiting patiently. The one comment I'd make is I would favor the 3, and I wouldn't favor waiting and staging it in. I think that putting it in effect gives some breathing room for some of the things we're talking about, rather than parsing out a little bit each year when people are waiting for the next tranche to be distributed. So with that, and we discuss it. My only quibble with Buzzy is I don't see how we're going to get any feedback from the town as a whole. Certainly, it's an open meeting. Certainly, people there are free to listen and express their views, etc. But those are their views, and they don't necessarily affect anybody other than the person reacting, because it just isn't plausible.
Well, I'm just interested in rich discussion, getting a sense of what those people who come can promote, if possible. I think we might end up being terribly disappointed that nobody comes.
Yeah, but I have no quarrel with that, Buzzy. It was the idea that the public input as a whole, there's no way to get it. The people were there, of course.
Yeah, well, you'd never get that with a single meeting anyway. I don't think you. So
No,
you're right.
just get what we will get, but it will be more than we would have gotten. Don't need to-
Okay, Socratic method at its work. Thank you, Buzzy.
Okay. Okay. Enough of that. So we do have a warrant in front of us. We can, we don't need to go through, it's already 8:13, but we can certainly, there does not seem to be a tremendous amount of, financial. There's the typical ones that we have, right? Our typical articles. There doesn't seem to be, too many others that are needing to be extreme meetings that we need to schedule. So we have our CPC with Betty that I'll talk to Betty and get her scheduled. And does anyone?
There's an article on there for the personnel board for $30,000 for a independent classification and compensation study.
And I think you and Gary will be able to talk through that, right?
Yes, right.
Okay.
So when we get to that, we don't need a separate invitation.
Right, perfect. Okay. Did anyone see anything else on the warrant that would require a request to have someone come in to talk about?
Karen, the compensation study that they're going to be doing,
Mhm.
they haven't picked a firm yet. They're just getting an idea. Is that what
Right, that was an estimate, Gary, that was given to me by that HR.gov.
GovHR? Yeah.
Yeah, the same firm that did Dartmouth's.
Yeah. Okay.
They would still have to technically go out for bid for that. But we'd see who would end up bidding. I'm almost inclined to bump the number up a little bit just to make sure that we have enough. But I think that I don't know if the select board's professional services budget could cover any overages to that. I don't want to be short. You know, I want to make sure that, you know, she said 27,000. Jim and I have had discussions that hopefully maybe they could help us with some rewriting of the personnel bylaws to update those. And that certainly would be for more. So I'm toying with putting another 10 in there, but you and I could talk about that offline.
What's the funding source? We're saying free cash?
Free
Yeah,
cap,
free cash.
right.
We can't use opera for that?
I went before ARPA for that and they were not so inclined. If it didn't pass at town meeting, I'd make another stab at ARPA.
So
Okay.
without going into the details of the warrant, so I'm just trying to look for getting the next round of our schedule together. And I didn't see, nothing else popped out at me that would require, other than the CPC, that would require anything. So if you guys could take a look at the warrant, if you haven't had a chance to, and we can certainly highlight the ones that, anything that has a financial impact are what we need to make recommendations for. And so we want to make sure that we have enough information to be able to make a recommendation. And so we can, you know, I can certainly go through and highlight those and send them off and see if anybody has anything. But since we're in good shape, we're mid-March, so I think we can get through the warrant articles probably in one meeting probably. Okay, so, and next on, all set, nothing else for anybody on that? Okay, so the next item is to approve the minutes of March 7th, 2023.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion on that at all? I see none, so I will go for a roll call. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Buzzy,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and Karen Rouse, aye. Our meeting schedule, I'll let you know as soon as I know, either next Tuesday or Wednesday. And I have nothing else unless anyone else has anything else they want to discuss tonight. I see no hands. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, I
Second.
didn't think I was going to get a motion. I thought, whoa, we want to keep going.
We're all talked out.
All right, roll call. Hugh,
Aye.
Buzzy,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and Karen, I. Good night, everyone. Thank you for a rich discussion.